Welcome back, guys, and in this series we're going to build a simple to-do list over here, and we'll be adding some set of text over here, displaying them over here, deleting them, and we'll see how to probably edit them. And there we are. Now what do we do first? The first thing we need to do is to add a new Laravel project. So what do we need to do? We'll come over here and I'll open my terminal again. So we'll have composer, create project. So it's a Laravel project, right? There we are, and we'll give it a name. Let's say to do. There we are. Now this tutorial is going to make you how to understand how do we actually post some data using Livewire components, and how do we actually show the data, and how do we manipulate the data, so to speak. Now it's going to be an eye-opener for those who love using Ajax. This is almost an alternative to Ajax itself. You just add some data without refreshing, or you can also refresh if you feel like refreshing in the most easiest way, so to speak. So I'll have to cd, there's a project here called to do. I'll have to cd into to do. For Windows users, I don't know how you do that. I've been using Linux all my life. So we have to do over here. So there we are. So I'll need to kind of serve this application. So my project is currently empty, and there we are. It's what does it say? Oh, 8001. So there we are, 8001. Very beautiful over here. And let's begin. Now the index.html here, the UI is in the link in the description below. Now it doesn't have any external assets. I'll just have to copy it and go to resources, views, and go to welcome, and just add it over there. Now if I decide and come and refresh this page, Laravel over here, everything looks great from my end. Good. Now what do we need to do next? We need to kind of, let me just close this up. We need to configure a database. The first thing I'll do is that I'll add the database credentials, that is the password, and I'll also have be forced to add the database name. Let me call it YouTube to do, and there we are. So let's go to our MySQL database, and let's create a new database, and let's say we call it YouTube to do. It's currently empty here, right? Now we are done with the database. The next thing I need to do is that I need to add my Livewire component and Livewire package, and we'll do that by typing composer require Livewire. Right. You can go online and check the documentation over the same for you to understand more and more. So there we are. So everything looks good, and let's go back and serve our application. So it's PHP artisan serve. So we are currently here, so everything is ready. The only thing we need to do currently now is to actually manipulate the data. Now first of all, we'll create a new Livewire component. Let me cd into to do. Now that means I'm in this current folder. So we need to create a component. Creating a Livewire component is quite easy. So we'll have PHP artisan Livewire make. Let's say we'll call it CRUD, right? So we'll have a CRUD over there, and I'll not show you some love now because I've already showed you some love. Now if I refresh over here, and if you check, we have a Livewire CRUD over here, and we also have, go to app, go to HTTP Livewire CRUD. We also have this over here. Now this particular file will be doing manipulation for this particular file, and basically before everything else in Livewire, if you forget this, nothing will work basically. So we need to come here and add the scripts, the styling, the Livewire styling. So I'll just have to type Livewire, and it looks like this, Livewire styles, and go down here and add Livewire scripts. Now if I try and refresh this page, and let me just view the page source. You'll notice there's a styling here that I don't have, and there's a script here that I don't have. Those belong to Livewire. Without it, Livewire can never work. Okay, so that being said, now how do we actually decide and show this CRUD component, this blade here? How do we display it over there? Now, as opposed to how we include in PHP that is not being used here, we have to use it as, let's say, let me call free. We have to import it this way. Now this is how we import it. Let's say I've written something like free, and I need to display free over here. How do I do that? So we'll have Livewire. Now it's a component, it's just called CRUD, right? So simple. That is how we just add it over there. Now if I go back to a project and refresh, I should see free somewhere. It's free, right? Now my interest basically is to have this set of data, everything over here. I need to have it in the CRUD over here, so I'll just have to copy and paste. Now if I refresh the page, you'll notice only free goes away because I've removed it and everything looks great. There we are. Now my focus now has shifted not from this but from this CRUD file over here and this over here. Now this will be manipulating this guy over here. Now the only function you have currently is rendering, which is livewire.crud, which is this particular file, right? We don't have anything else, and we need to begin to manipulate. Now there's one thing more we have to do. We have to create a model, and let's say we need to create a model which will have a database, a table, maybe let's say to-dos, right? So PHP artisan, let's make a model, and the model will be called to-do, right? So I'll do a migration over the same, and for this case I'll go to database migrations. I have to-dos, and the only thing I'll basically need is what I call, let me just call it a string, or it's a string. It's a text. I need a text. Now that means this text is what I'm talking about, and it will be displayed somewhere. Now that being done, let me do a migration. Now the migration will come with tables that I don't need even to use for this project. PHP artisan migrate. It's migrating the user's password field. I'm not even interested in anything else here. I'm only interested in these to-dos over here. Now if I refresh over here, you'll notice the table will be created successfully. Let's see, YouTube to do. Where are you? YouTube to do. You're here, and we have to do table. This is the table that my only focus is on currently. Now let's close this, and now let's decide and display the data that we don't have, and not actually manipulate any data here or whatever is in this particular list, because I believe this is where we'll be looping through. I will just add and see whether it's displaying. I know there's 0, but let's try and do something. So we'll use app/models. Now some Linux users perfectly understand, Linux Ubuntu users perfectly understand some problems people face actually as far as the keyboard setting is concerned, and that is what I have currently. So don't do whatever I'm doing right now. Set xk bmap, and we have a layout, and I'll set it to GB. Okay, so we'll use app/models/users. No, to do. Now to do is this particular model that we have over here. Let me show you. It's this models and to do. So it's models to do, right? So we need to display all the data, right? Now first of all, let's create what you call public, let's say to-dos. So we need to assign the value of these to-dos and we need to assign it the value of all to do, right? That looks good. Now as opposed to how you used to import some things over here with Livewire, it's so different. We just need to call these to-dos in this particular file over here. So we'll have for each, right, for each to do's as to do, and not use the value or the key. So we'll have to end for each, and we'll have to end for each over here. Now I believe there's no data over here. Now it should be null. This should disappear in an instant, in a flash. Pop, it's not there because we don't have any data in our database currently, right? Because this to-dos actually says it's all to-dos, and if you check our database, there's no to-do, so it's actually empty, right? Now let's begin by inserting our data and displaying our data, right? So how do we do that? For this case, I'll just, let me remove this type submit for now. So the first thing we need to do is that we need to associate it to a model. So we'll have a wire model, and this wire model will say, for example, let's just call text, and then we'll come over here, and Livewire just knows if you say public, instead of repeating myself and writing another public at text, public $text, we just have it as here, as that way. So Livewire already knows what you want to do, and we create a function. Let's say it's wire. What happens when you click, right? So when you click, we'll go and have an action, like say we'll have a function, let's say add to do, right? So we'll quickly navigate and create this add to do. So in our CRUD, we'll have public add to do, public function, and it's add to do, and there we are. It looks good. So what next do we need to do? We need to insert a new to do. So we'll have to do is a new instance of to do, right? So we'll have this to do which points to this particular column called text, and the actual value of this is this text, right? And then we'll have to do, and we'll have to save it. Now there's a way we can display errors and we can display success messages. I'm going to give that as an assignment for now, but for now let me just add the data, right? So let's refresh and let's try and add some data over here. Let's say welcome, and submit. It's writing something totally different because it feels like I'm adding some data and it should be displaying. You see, there's a welcome here. Now let's go back and display the data well. So we'll have to do, this is to do, so we'll only have the normal things happen. We'll have to do, and we'll have to do text, right? Now these are the things I'm going to create in a moment. Let's just leave it as it is for now because we need to see some data. Okay, let's say jumping and submit. It's jumping, right? Now let me decide and sort them based on what is latest and see what happens. Let me see whether it will work. Oh, okay. Welcome 3 is there. Sleeping. Now there's one thing you notice, if I am adding them to my database, this value is not set to null, and there's a way we can do this. Let me just create another function, is public function reset, let's say reset form, reset to do form, reset to, my function naming kind of looks very funny, and just forgive me for that for now. Reset to do, and we'll have to set the value of text to null, right? To null. So once we add in our database, we need to call this function so that it resets the value to null. So we'll have to reset to do, right? So I think it looks good. So let's do a quick refresh and let's say sleeping. Okay, I like sleeping. Okay, coding, it becomes null, and it actually adds coding over here, which is exactly what I expected, which is very fine. Now the next thing we need to do, let's go on delete, and then we'll come back and do the edit, right? It's creating, updating, no, creating, we have created, we are reading, right? We need to know how to update and lastly delete, but I'll begin by delete before I come back to updating, right? So in deleting, it's also quite so easy. Now how do we do it? It's in this trash over here, right? Now let's have a wire click. Now what happens when you click this guy is that we'll have a function, let's say delete to do, right? So in this delete to do, it needs to have something we pass through it, right? So we'll have to do id, right? So we'll delete based on the id itself. Okay, as I said, forgive me for my functions for now. So there we are. So we have delete to do. So what do we need to do? We need to create a function called delete to do, because currently if I try and refresh this page and I decide to delete, there is an error that comes. It doesn't know what you're talking about, right? And that is what I don't want to happen. Now let's go to CRUD. We'll have a public function to do, delete to do, and we pass in an id, right? So we'll have that. So how do we delete data from database? We'll have to do, we'll find where we have this particular id, and what do we do? We need to delete, right? Is this how we do it? I believe so. So let's see, let's refresh here and let's try and delete. Coding is gone, sleeping is gone, welcome is gone, jumping is gone, and everything looks perfect, right? Now the next thing I've said we need to do probably is how do we edit this data, which is one of the let me say something more of complex in this tutorial without refreshing the page, right? Now this is also quite easy. What we need to do, let's say for example, currently updating is false, right? Update to do is false, right? Now currently it's false, but there's some point it will come and be true. That is very true. So it's update to do. Now if it's here, control, let me just have, now if update to do is true, it will display something else. We are assuming you just need to create, right? Now if you need, currently if it's false, now if it is false, it will just display this guy. If it is true, it will display what we have here, right? That means if I refresh, this data will still appear, nothing goes away. Now I said it's a bit complex and I need to understand why. Now if I need to update to do, let's say for example, let's say on click, let's say let me just call it edit to do. And we'll have to pass in an id, right? Now whenever I will click this edit to do, it only means it will set the value of update to do to true, and whatever is here should be displayed. And that is the idea I really have in mind. So basically if I go over here, I'll create a function. So public function edit to do, we pass in an id. Now what this does is that this particular update to do, this guy over here, it will set the value to true. So we'll have this update to do, and we'll set the value to what? To true. We'll set it to true, right? It's a bool. Now if it's true, it means what data we have over here will be displayed, right? So let's say for example I say updating, and let's go and refresh first, and I need to edit this guy called document. If I click on edit, something weird is happening. Let's see why. So So real quick, let me remove this check. Oh, I added on click. Forgive me for that. It's not on click, it's wire click. I believe my console was shouting at me. I believe, yeah, it's telling me edit to do is not defined because I was using on click actually. So let's see. Come here. So if I say I want to edit this guy, edit, it's telling me I'm updating because that is what I'm expecting right now. Now let's display the data, right? So what we do next is that we'll have to find this particular to do. Okay, we'll come here to edit to do. We'll find this particular to do based on the ID, right? So this to do is this particular to do. We'll find it or fail. It will never fail. Okay, maybe it will fail. Find or fail based on the ID, right? So we'll have to set the new value of to do. This guy, we'll set the value of the text. So we'll have this text and we'll set it to the value of whatever we have in our database, which is to do text, right? Now that is the first thing, because we always kind of update based on what you have in the database. So I'll have to introduce something else. I'll call it ID. It's nil by default, so we'll have to set the value of this to do, and we'll set this, let's say ID, whatever we have over there, and we'll set the value of to do ID, or rather we can also set the value of, we can also set its value to this particular ID that you have over here. And I believe ID always has issues. Let me call it to do ID. Let me say TID, and let's say you can try and use ID and see the type of error it will bring, and find or fail ID and this TID. Good, it will tell you maybe it's reserved, I believe so. So let's see. And the last thing is that we need to display that data. Instead of saying updating, we need to display that data. I'll just have to pick whatever I have over here, and boom, I'll paste it here, and we have wire model text, no problem. I'll remove the placeholder. I'm not even using it anyway over here. And let me say on click it will be update to do maybe. And what else do we need? We need to have an input, another input. Let me add it for text for now, and we'll have to have a wire model, and it's an ID, right? So one, I need to see the ID. The next thing is the text, and then if I update the text, I submit, or rather update, the data should be displayed successfully. Good, looks good to me. So let's go and refresh over here and see. So if I decide and edit, welcome is appearing. There's a form here with ID which is not displaying currently, and we'll know why. You see it's empty, but welcome is as expected. So let's go and see. So it's setting the value of ID, but you don't have ID, we have TID, right? So it sets the value of this TID to this ID. Forgive me for that, I stand guilty as charged. So if I click on edit, boom, welcome is here. The ID is not still displaying. It doesn't feel like displaying. I don't know why. So this TID, oh, I know why. If you come here, it's actually TID, not ID. Again, that is why. So let's do a quick refresh, and by now you already know what will happen. Everything will be working as expected. So let's see. So edit and welcome with the ID. So we don't need anyone to see this ID, so let's give it hidden, right? Now everything looks good. So if I do welcome, I want to edit you, it comes and then it creates update button over here, which is very good. Now let's say we need to update to do. Let's go and update to do. So I'll come here to CRUD and I'll create another function. Let's say update to do. So I'll have a public function update to do, and boom, looks good to me. So what do we need to do next? So we'll need to update. So we'll have to do, which is a to do will find or fail where ID is this particular this TID that we created, right? TID T_ID. So we'll have to update the text, and the value of the text is this text that we have set in this context, right? So we'll have text, and then we'll have to do save. To do save, and there we are. So we are good to go. Now the next thing I need to do is that I don't want, okay, let me maybe do it. Let's say if I refresh and say I want to edit this guy and edit and say welcomes and I update, I don't need it to remain this one. I need to go back to the create function, right? So we'll have to call this, we'll have to say this up, we'll have to set this value of update to do now back to false, right? Now we are not really updating again. So we'll have it here. So we'll have this to do, this update to do, and we'll set it the value to false. So let's refresh. Boom, welcomes, edit, welcomes again, update, boom, looks good. Welcomes again is still here, so we need to kind of reset to do, right? So we'll have this reset to do. I believe this is one of the ways you can do it. If you have a better way to do it, you can really tell me and you can check on it. So let me refresh, and welcome to do, edit, welcome again, boys or people, update, boom, it goes, welcome again, people, and say jumping, submit, boom, we have jumping over there, and we can delete. So basically create, let me delete this first. So create jumping, read over here, update jumpings, delete, and we are doing the right thing actually. Now there's one button I have here, clear items. Now clear items clears everything from our database, which is not very right to have it, but I'm going to show you actually how do we manipulate it. It's quite simple too. We'll go here, clear button, so we'll have a wire click. So we'll have a wire click. So this wire click, let's say it is delete all. It is very dangerous, and I'll just show you for the purpose of this tutorial. So we'll have a delete all. So we'll have public function. You should leave it as an assignment. Maybe you can pause this video and try it out. So delete all, and then we'll have to do delete, to do, how do delete, to do delete, is it this way? Okay, I can see it's that way. So it will delete everything in to do, right? So let's see, clear all items, and this is not in this context. What is it saying? Using this not in this context. I don't even understand what it says. So let's see, it's telling me to do is not in this context. Let's try and see. So let's say welcome, submit, clear all items, add this is not in this context, which this is talking about. Delete all, it looks fine. Why is there an error? Delete all to do, let me say maybe delete all to do. I don't know whether I have a problem with the naming. Delete all to do, please work, please work. Or let me try and use DB. db table to do's and see something and delete. Let me see whether this will work. I don't know why I have an issue with this, or will destroy work, I don't know. Use db. So let's see, let's refresh. No, we are here. Where are we? Where is the problem? db table to do's and delete, use db. There we are. Let's refresh and boom, level items, still an error. No, it works. I don't know why the other one doesn't work. Please let me know in the comment section below. So let's see. Welcomes to delete, clear all items, and the list becomes empty. Now friends, that is the end of our CRUD, and please make sure you like, share and subscribe, and please drop your comments. They really mean a lot to me. Let me know what you want me to do next, and thank you.